The most brutal betrayals in history. Benedict Arnold, the hero who turned. By 1780, Benedict Arnold had built one of the most impressive military records in the entire Continental Army. He had led a grueling march through the wilderness of Maine to attack Quebec in brutal winter conditions, commanded a makeshift naval fleet on Lake Champlain that delayed a British invasion long enough to buy the Americans critical time, and played a decisive role in the Battle of Saratoga, widely considered the turning point of the Revolutionary War. He was brave, aggressive, and tactically brilliant. But despite all of this, Arnold felt deeply and persistently wronged. Congress had repeatedly passed him over for promotion, favoring men with political connections over battlefield merit. He had been investigated for corruption during his time as military governor of Philadelphia, charges he considered insulting slanders, and found himself buried in debt partly because of his service to the cause. The resentment built slowly, then completely. What followed was one of the most calculated betrayals in American history. Arnold quietly established contact with British Major John André, offering to hand over West Point, a strategically vital fort controlling the Hudson River, in exchange for £20,000 and a commission in the British Army. The plan, if successful, could have split the American states in two and potentially ended the war. But it unraveled at the last moment. André was captured behind American lines carrying the incriminating documents. Faced with almost certain arrest, Arnold received a last-minute warning and fled by boat to a British warship, escaping justice by the narrowest of margins. He spent the rest of his life in British service, then in exile in England and Canada, widely despised on both sides of the Atlantic. A man who had once risked everything for American independence died with his name permanently synonymous with treachery. MirJafar, the man who sold a nation. In 1757, Bengal was one of the wealthiest provinces in the known world. Its textile trade, agriculture, and commerce made it a prize that the British East India Company had long coveted but never been able to claim by force alone. The young Nawab, Siraj-ud-Daulah, had clashed bitterly with the company over its growing military presence and its habit of misusing trading privileges. War became inevitable, but the British commander Robert Clive understood something crucial: Bengal could not be won on the battlefield alone. So he didn't just prepare an army, he bought a general. MirJafar was Siraj's commander-in-chief, a man of enormous influence and even larger ambitions. He had his own grievances with the Nawab and his own desire for power. Through a secret treaty, Clive promised MirJafar the throne of Bengal in exchange for one simple act: stand aside when the battle begins. That moment arrived at Plassey on June 23, 1757. On paper, the numbers were staggering. Siraj's forces totaled somewhere around 50,000 troops against fewer than 3,000 British and Allied soldiers. Victory should have been swift and total. But as the fighting opened, MirJafar held the majority of the Bengali army completely motionless on the field. He waited. He watched. Siraj's active commanders fought bravely but were overwhelmed without reinforcement. Confusion spread through the Bengali ranks as soldiers looked toward MirJafar's enormous, stationary force and received no orders to advance. Within hours, what should have been a decisive Bengali victory became a catastrophic rout. MirJafar was duly installed as Nawab, but as a puppet, entirely dependent on British support, his so-called power little more than a performance of authority. The real consequences fell on everyone else. The Battle of Plassey opened the door to nearly 2 centuries of British colonial rule over the Indian subcontinent, and a single general's greed set the whole machinery in motion.